Welcome to Around Africa. I'm Abdullahi Abubakar Kaka, and today we're going to discuss the current situation in Kenya as President Uhuru Kenyatta emerged victorious during the electoral roll, while opposition leader Raila Odinga boycotted the election. A News Dilek Tuna has more on this.
Following rerun polls in Kenya, Kenya's electoral body announced on Monday incumbent President Uhuru Kenyatta won the repeat presidential election with 98.3% of the votes cast. Independent Electoral and Boundary Commission Chairman Wafula Chebukati announced that Kenyatta gathered 7.48 million of the total votes cast, whereas his National Super Alliance rival Raila Odinga only received 73,228 votes, or about 1%. The chairman said more than 7.6 million of the total 19.6 million registered voters turned up at Thursday's election, and the election failed to take place in 25 constituencies, or 8.6% of the total constituencies, affected by security factors. Kenyatta thanked the voters who turned up to the elections in his speech after the result was announced. He called for the people to safeguard peace and keep solidarity. Kenyatta was declared the winner of the August 8th presidential polls on August 11th. The opposition leader Odinga refused to accept the result and instituted an appeal to the Supreme Court.
That the presidential election held...
The Supreme Court on September 1st annulled the results of the August 8th presidential polls and ordered the IEBC to conduct fresh presidential elections within 60 days. Odinga withdrew from the fresh presidential race 16 days prior to the election and rallied his supporters on October 25th to boycott the October 26th balloting, which was marred by low turnout and violent protests in opposition strongholds. According to Kenyan media, Odinga's NASA said earlier that it will not accept the result of the repeat election.
Kenya's opposition leader Raila Odinga told Reuters in an interview that he was open to talks with President Uhuru Kenyatta over a constitutional review aimed at lowering the risk of violence from minority groups who feel excluded from power.
You can see that there's a lot of unease in the country. Some people are talking about secession and so on. That those are symptoms of a society that is at war with itself. So, although we had a new constitution we enacted in 2010, we think that it's now time for us to revisit it.
Odinga also stated that he wants an interim government to run the country for 6 months while the constitution is reviewed to reduce the president's authority.
We're not looking at ourselves. We're talking about what is best for this country. You see, a society which is got so many different ethnic groups. A pure presidential system enhances ethnicity because each community believes that they're not safe unless their man is at the top.
Odinga boycotted both August and October elections in Kenya, citing widespread irregularities in the counting process. Odinga's supporters have repeatedly protested the results, and at least 51 people have been killed in the turmoil since August, fueling an atmosphere of uncertainty in East Africa's richest economy.
Welcome back. Joining us via Skype is Abdinasir Jumaale from Somalia. While Abdinasir was the writer of the article on the rise of Al-Shabaab. While from Kenya, we have Gideon Inyoke, who is a lawyer and a journalist and political analyst in Kenya. And in studio here with me is Ibrahim Mulushewa. I would quickly like to start with Abdinasir. Abdinasir, how could crisis in Kenya affect the East Africa region?
Yeah, that's a very good question, really. Like, Kenya was like one of the most stable country in East Africa, if not like the most. And having like, a chaos or like a problem in Kenya, that means it will affect like the entire region, not just like East Africa. Actually, it will affect like, it will extend towards like the continent. You already have like Somalia, which was already in chaos. And now if you add Kenya, that will be another problem. just like imagine, like, you have like East African countries, like there is an organization they call IGAD. It's like a regional organization, and they're like around 5 countries, I guess. I'm not sure. I think 5 countries. And they can't even solve the problem that we are already facing from Somalia. So imagine if Kenya, with that like double of my country's like population, I'm not sure, I'm just guessing, but like more than Somalia's population.
Yeah.
Like you can imagine like the extent of like the instability and the chaos that it can, like cast towards the entire region.
Yeah. Gideon, what is the current situation in Kenya? Can you give us a highlight?
Is the situation that we are in Kenya. I can say that the situation is not that bad because the people are not fighting compared to 2007. We have not had the violence that we had, and the future is bright if the leaders come together and they reason together. And I know that in the coming days, the political and the constitutional crisis that we have been resolved if every Kenyans come together and the issue of tribe are down, and we see ourselves as a country, we'll be able to overcome the challenges and the issues that we're having for now.
Thank you, Ibrahim. When we talk about the crisis in Kenya now, what can you talk about? What can you say? Like, we know that Kenya is one of the major countries in the East Africa region, and you're from Ethiopia yourself. So what can you say if there was, God forbid, but if there would be crisis in Kenya, what would happen?
Okay, thank you very much. I, in somewhat agree with the guests from Somalia and Kenya, but I also differ from them in some aspects. For example, I don't believe that Kenya is a stable country of all countries in the Horn of Africa, because Kenya has been in problem, especially ethnic problem has been there for beginning from at least 2007, and people just were fighting against each other. Even some claimed that it was to the extent that it was genocide. Kenya's difference in recent years is not Kenya is stable, but instead Kenya is the most democratic country in the eastern part of Africa. Because the problem in Kenya is, I think there is, Kenya is trying to be a country which conduct a fair and free election.
Talking about free and fair, let me cut you short. Abdel Nasser, opposition leader, refused to participate in the election run. So do you think there will be a power struggle in Kenya?
Like, if you see the way Kenyan politics is structured, like, there is no like power vacuum that we can discuss now. There is already a competent government that's sitting there. So like, and there is no like, an opposition that is already armed, like, like Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is a terrorist organization, but, the opposition is like political organization, political party. But, like, there is no like vacuum there. There is like a government and there's oppositions, and there's like a clear chain of command that's like, controlling the country. So there's no vacuum. But hypothetically speaking, if we have a power vacuum, then we might have like, another organizations, not specifically or like, saying terrorist organizations, but you will have like some rebels and that non-state actors that will just like damage, not just or hurt like Kenyans, but also like other countries.
All right.
But for the near future, I don't see there's a power vacuum in Kenya. No.
Yeah, but say Gideon, can you tell us what is the way forward for Kenya right now?
I think the way forward is to see the bigger picture of Kenya and remove the superiority battles between Mr. Odinga and Mr. Kenyatta. But also, I think leaders need to try to come together to unify the people, because I know if Mr. Odinga would meet Mr. Kenyatta and they agree on a possible way forward, I think that will do. But since the both camps are holding tough positions, and we can hear some politicians from the eastern side of the country, they are saying they want to secede, and the other politicians who are saying that Kenyatta is sworn in, Odinga will also be sworn in. So I think the way forward is the leaders to come together for the better, for the best interest of the country.
All right, so like Ibrahim, so when we talk about Kenya right now, what do you think is going to be the way forward for them?
I think Mr. Odinga, in somewhat, is correct in saying that the Kenyan, the election problem is not about Odinga and Kenyatta.
Yeah.
It is about Kenya's basic problem of ethnic conflict. Therefore, if Kenya want to come out of this problem, this should be something which cannot be interpreted as a problem of election rigging or something.
Yeah.
It is, in Kenya, there is a problem of ethnic
differentiation.
Yes, not differentiation, that is normal, but there is ethnic tension.
Yeah.
People use ethnicity as a base for their constituency.
Yeah.
Therefore, if Kenyans are not to come together in order to solve the problem, which they think that one ethnic group is, superior to the other, I think this kind of things Kenyans should think of nationally instead of in terms of ethnic identity. Therefore, because in Kenya, not only in Kenya, by the way, in East Africa, in Ethiopia, in Somalia, for example, even if it is not as ethnic group visible, but tribal problem is a big problem. Therefore, I think the question of identity should be solved, and it should be solved democratically in order to Kenya to come out of this. It's not about whether Odinga or whether Kenyatta is. Yeah,
talking about whether Odinga or Kenyatta, Gideon, we saw like both leaders came together this weekend, and what do you think about that? What are you going to say about that? And also, how can the youth participate in how to make Kenya a better place?
Yes, I heard that the Anglican Church is leading the negotiation process, but them coming together, it helped the nation to show the people that they should not hate each other because you support one country or the other. Yeah. So I think it helped in cooling the temperatures, and if they continue meeting together, it will help in lowering down the emotions, because what we are suffering in Kenya is that people are very emotional on the political leadership, and people are very passionate on that, and they end up hating each other, and in sometimes, as we saw in some part of Nairobi, Kawangware, two communities were fighting. So I think with them coming together and meeting more often, they will be able to keep temperatures.
All right. All right. Thank you for that. But Gideon, again, I'm going to ask you the same another question. Like, how can the youth? I asked you earlier. How can the youth in Kenya help the government, and how can the government support the youth in Kenya?
Yeah. The point I was making. I was saying that the government can help the youth to bring a change in our country if they are able to provide a conducive environment where business will flourish, and also where the youth will get employed, and that will minimize the balance where we have so many idle youth who are easily manipulated to cause chaos and demonstrations.
All right, that's very good. I'll ask Abdel Nasser the same question. Abdel Nasser, how can the youth, how can the youth across East Africa support the government in East Africa to prosper?
It's really difficult, especially if you see like all African countries. Like in every country, the composition of society. So if you see like youth are like the biggest portion in terms of percentage. However, like people who are in in top positions, these are all and you see like a country ruled by one person like for its entire time, like since its independence. That's impossible. If you see like they are not even ready to give like deputy ministers to like the youth. So like if you see like all of these countries, all these like youth, like the generations, they are ready. They're very enthusiastic. They make like efforts to make some change in their lives and also like for their countries. However, that means it's not ready for them.
All right. Ibrahim, so you're from East Africa. You know this, the geography there. So how can the youths support the government? How can the government, vice versa, how can the government support the youth also?
My take of the things is this: youths are in two camps, like any social group. Therefore, for example, Odinga has his own youth, and also Kenyatta too. Therefore, there are youths who are in the opposition and in the government side. Therefore, the division is not about age or gender. The division, as I insist, is about tribe, about ethnicity and economy. If Kenya is, for example, being, about Kenya, one of the negative things which talked about is about corruption in Kenya. Even corruption is very much rooted, visible, and therefore Kenya should tackle the corruption problem. And also Kenya should, in Kenya what I see is lack of confidence. Not lack of confidence, but a lack of trust to one another. For example, those who support the government do not believe that the opposition, if the opposition have power, it will subdue us, it will, discriminate us. And the people who are supporting the opposition is the same. Therefore, there is lack of trust between Kenya's political entities. Therefore, part of that is the youth. For example, there are many areas which are boycotted by the opposition, and almost
4 countries.
Yes, 4 countries, and it is a huge population. How can
election take place?
The election be credited? One of the things which is now talked is about the very credibility of the election. Therefore, Kenya should tackle one is ethnic problem. It can be subjective. It can be the way people think about ethnicity. It can be also a real identity problem. Kenya should tackle this, and the other is economy. If the economy and if the identity issues are tackled in Kenya, I think Kenya will be. I think I admire Kenya in one thing. Kenya is trying its best to be as democratic as possible. This is one of the most important achievements of East Africa. For example, in West Africa, as you know better than me, like countries like Ghana, Nigeria, and Gambia, we are witnessing a success in democracy. In recent years, recently we witnessed the Gambian victory against dictatorship. Therefore, for me, Kenya is on the way to democracy, and the challenges Kenya is facing is related to democracy in one sense. How Kenyan democracy tackle the trust problem within groups, within political and ethnic groups. If Kenya is in a position to tackle it, believe me, Kenya will be one of the best countries of Africa.
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. Thank you very much, Abdel Nasser, for joining us from Somalia.
Thank you very much.
And thank you very much also, Gideon.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Gideon also for
Yes. Yeah, thank you.
For those who want to participate on our online, you can you can have your say on our Twitter page at A News Africa, or you can follow us on our Facebook page also at A News Africa with a 2A. And that's it from me. I'm Abdullahi Abubakar Kaka. Around Africa returns next week the same time Goodbye for now.